The Zephyrian Confederacy had waited 300 years for this moment. In the vast command center of their homeworld, Admiral Veltar stood before a massive holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed, like tiny jewels, each one marked with different colors. Green meant controlled territory. Yellow meant systems under negotiation. Red meant hostile zones to avoid. But there was one small system that glowed white. Sol, the system that housed the primitive planet called Earth. Admiral Veltar's four arms moved gracefully as he manipulated the holographic controls. The display zoomed in on the Sol system, showing detailed information about each planet. Mars with its thin atmosphere, Venus with its crushing heat, and Earth, the blue-green world that housed the species called humans. "Admiral," said his chief strategist, a tall Zephyrian named Colwyn, "the final calculations are complete. Human integration probability stands at 98.7% success." Veltar nodded his elongated head. The Zephyrians were proud of their ability to plan. Every member of their species learned mathematics before they learned to walk properly. Their entire civilization was built on careful calculation and systematic thinking. They never rushed into anything. They never acted without complete information. "Show me the timeline again," Veltar commanded. The holographic display changed. To show a detailed chart, Phase 1 would last to Earth years and involve peaceful first contact. The humans would be impressed by Zephyrian technology and eager to trade. Phase 2 would take 5 years, during which economic partnerships would be established. Phase 3 would span 10 years of gradual political influence. By Phase 4, the humans would voluntarily request membership in the Confederacy. "The humans have achieved basic faster-than-light travel," reported Intelligence Officer Mech. "Their ships are crude but functional. They have no unified planetary government. Their military technology is approximately 400 years behind our current capabilities." Veltar studied the data streams flowing across his screens: human population numbers, resource production statistics, military vessel counts. Everything had been measured, analyzed, and predicted. The Confederacy's massive computer systems had run 17 million different simulation scenarios. In every single one, humanity either joined the Confederacy peacefully or was easily conquered if they chose to resist. "What about their psychological profiles?" Veltar asked. "Fascinating species," replied cultural analyst Jinkar. "They show high levels of creativity but low levels of strategic thinking. They tend to make emotional decisions rather than logical ones. They form strong social bonds but struggle with large-scale cooperation. Most importantly, they have never encountered another intelligent species. First contact shock should make them very manageable." The Admiral walked slowly around the holographic display. His people had conquered 47 different species over the past millennium. Each conquest had followed the same pattern: peaceful contact, technological demonstration, economic integration, political absorption. It was a formula that had never failed. "Sir," called Communications Officer Valinix from her station, "we're receiving the final reports from our deep space reconnaissance ships. They've been observing human activities for the past 6 months without detection. And human space activity is even more limited than we initially calculated. They have one deep space exploration vessel currently operating beyond their home system, a ship called New Horizon commanded by someone named Captain Kim. Her crew consists of 23 individuals with minimal combat training." Veltar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had one ship, one single vessel exploring the vast emptiness between stars. The Confederacy was approaching with a fleet of 200 warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets. "The humans will not even realize what is happening until it is far too late," he said quietly. The massive command center hummed with quiet efficiency. Hundreds of Zephyrian officers worked at their stations, monitoring every aspect of the approaching operation. Fleet positions were tracked to the meter. Supply lines were calculated to the gram. Communication protocols were tested and retested. Everything was perfect. Everything was planned. Everything was under control. "Admiral," announced Fleet Commander Turville, "all ships report ready for translation to the Sol system. We await your command." Veltar took one final look at the holographic display. The white dot representing Earth seemed so small and insignificant. Soon it would glow green like all the other Confederacy worlds. The humans would become productive members of galactic civilization. Their crude creativity would be channeled into useful purposes under proper Zephyrian guidance. "Begin the operation," he commanded. "Initiate Phase 1. Across the command center, officers began implementing the plan that had taken 3 centuries to perfect. Navigation computers calculated precise jump coordinates. Diplomatic protocols were loaded into communication systems. Cultural exchange. Gifts were prepared and loaded onto transport ships. 200 Zephyrian vessels entered hyperspace simultaneously, beginning their journey toward the Sol system. Each ship knew exactly where to position itself. Each captain understood their precise role in the operation. Each crew member had studied the plan until they could recite it perfectly. What none of them knew was that humans had a remarkable talent for ignoring other people's plans completely. Captain Kim was about to demonstrate this talent in ways that would fundamentally change the galaxy forever. The Confederacy's perfect plan was about to meet humanity's complete inability to do anything the way other species expected. Captain Kim was drinking her morning coffee when the proximity alarms started screaming. She nearly dropped her mug as Communications Officer Park burst into her small cabin aboard the New Horizon. "Captain, you need to see this," Park said, his voice shaking slightly. "We have contacts, lots of contacts." Kim followed him to the bridge, still carrying her coffee. The main screen showed 200 red dots arranged in a perfect geometric formation. Each dot represented a ship roughly 10 times larger than the New Horizon. "Well," Kim said calmly, taking another sip of coffee, "that's new." Engineer Lee looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. These ships are using technology we don't understand." Kim studied the display. The alien ships had stopped just outside the asteroid belt, maintaining perfect spacing between each vessel. It looked like a textbook military formation, the kind she had studied at the academy. Very organized, very professional, very intimidating. "Any communication attempts?" she asked. "That's the strange part," Park replied. "They've been broadcasting on multiple frequencies for the past hour. The signal is repeating in 17 different languages, including several Earth languages." Kim raised an eyebrow. "They speak our languages perfectly. The grammar is flawless. The pronunciation is better than most native speakers." On the main screen, the alien formation remained motionless. Kim could imagine the careful planning that had gone into positioning 200 ships with such precision. These were not random explorers. This was an organized first contact mission. "Let me hear the message," Kim said. Park activated the speakers. A calm, measured voice filled the bridge. "Greetings, inhabitants of the Sol System. We are representatives of the Zephyrian Confederacy. We come in peace, seeking dialogue with your planetary leadership. Please direct us to your Supreme Governing Authority for formal diplomatic contact." Kim blinked. Supreme Governing Authority. They want to talk to someone in charge of the entire planet. "That's what it sounds like," Park said. Kim started laughing. She couldn't help it. The idea of Earth having a single leader was absurd. 200 nations could barely agree on what to call the oceans, let alone who should speak for the entire species. "Sir," Lee asked nervously, "what are your orders?" Kim looked at her small crew. 23 people on a converted cargo ship, facing 200 alien warships. By any reasonable standard, she should send a message to Earth Command and wait for instructions. The proper thing to do would be to maintain a respectful distance while the adults figured out how to handle first contact. Instead, Kim finished her coffee and made a decision that would have horrified every military strategist. In human history, Park opened a channel to the lead ship. "Captain, maybe we should contact Earth first and tell them that aliens want to talk to our non-existent world president. By the time Earth figures out who should respond, these guys might get bored and leave." Park reluctantly activated the communication system. Kim cleared her throat and spoke into the microphone. "Hello there, alien ships. This is Captain Kim of the exploration vessel New Horizon. I'm probably not your supreme governing authority, but I'm the closest human to your location right now. Would you like to talk?" On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Ambassador Cap stared at his communication officer in confusion. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. According to the plan, Earth's government should send an official representative after careful deliberation. "Sir," his communication officer said, "the human appears to be requesting direct dialogue." "That is irregular," Kethwal replied. "Our cultural analysis indicates humans require formal governmental approval for diplomatic contact." Meanwhile, Kim was already preparing to visit the alien ship. "Lee, prep the shuttle. We're going over there." "Captain, that's extremely dangerous," Lee protested. "We don't know anything about these aliens. They could be hostile. If they wanted to hurt us, they wouldn't have announced themselves so politely," Kim said. "Besides, someone has to break the ice." Lee spent the next hour frantically modifying their small shuttle for the journey. He installed additional life support systems using spare parts from the ship's recycling unit. He added a translation computer, built from their entertainment system, and 3 coffee makers. The result was functional, but definitely not regulation. As Kim's makeshift shuttle approached the massive Zephyrian flagship, Ambassador Kethvel found himself in an unprecedented situation. His 3 centuries of diplomatic training had not prepared him for this scenario. "Sir," his security chief reported, "the human vessel is approaching without proper clearance codes." "Because they don't have clearance codes," Kethvel said slowly. "This species has never engaged in interstellar diplomacy before." Kim docked her shuttle using a combination of skill, luck, and what Lee had optimistically called adaptive engineering. When the airlock opened, she stepped onto the alien ship carrying a thermos of coffee and wearing her most diplomatic smile. Ambassador Kethful greeted her in the main docking bay, surrounded by guards who weren't sure whether to be formal or confused. Kim offered him coffee and introduced herself with the casual friendliness of someone meeting new neighbors. Within an hour, formal first contact had devolved into an impromptu cultural exchange over Earth's beverages, while human music played softly in the background. Ambassador Kethful found himself taking notes on human social customs while Kim asked enthusiastic questions about alien technology. The carefully planned first contact protocol was already falling apart, and Kim hadn't even mentioned that humans had been reverse engineering crashed alien technology for decades. 3 weeks after first contact, Engineer Yoon was elbow-deep in alien technology that shouldn't have been possible to understand. The Zephyrian flagship's quantum core had developed what their chief engineer called a critical cascade failure. According to Zephyrian calculations, the repair would require 6 months of careful work by their most skilled technicians. Yoon had fixed it in 3 hours using coffee grounds, spare wire from the ship's music system, and a wrench. "You hit our quantum core with a primitive striking tool?" Admiral Veltar asked, his forearms gesturing in what Yoon was learning meant extreme confusion. "Sometimes machines just need encouragement," Yoon replied cheerfully, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. "Back home, we call it percussion maintenance. Works on everything from cars to space elevators." The Zephyrian engineering team stood around their supposedly impossible to repair quantum core, which was now humming along perfectly. Their diagnostic equipment showed optimal performance levels. According to every law of physics they understood, Yoon's repair shouldn't have worked, but the quantum field harmonics were completely destabilized, protested Chief Engineer McFell. "The cascade pattern was irreversible according to our mathematical models." Yoon shrugged. "Your math said it was broken. I looked at it and thought maybe it just needed the right kind of nudge, so I nudged it." Admiral Veltar made a note in his personal log that human problem-solving defied mathematical prediction. This was becoming a disturbing trend. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Commander Song was teaching alien military doctrine, a lesson in creative chaos. The Zephyrians had requested a demonstration of human combat capabilities, expecting to see primitive but systematic tactics. Instead, they watched Song's fighter squadron use the asteroid field like a three-dimensional playground. Her pilots treated space combat like extreme sports, using chunks of rock as skateboard ramps and turning supply runs into elaborate games that confused every sensor array the aliens possessed. "Falcon 2, you're clear for the loop-de-loop maneuver," Song announced over the radio. "Copy that, Commander. Going for style points." From the observation deck of the Zephyrian flagship, Fleet Commander Terval watched a human pilot perform what could only be described as a barrel roll around a spinning asteroid while delivering ammunition to another fighter. The maneuver served no tactical purpose that Terval could identify, but somehow it worked. "Their flight patterns make no mathematical sense," he reported to Admiral Veltar. "Yet their effectiveness rating is surprisingly high." "How high?" Veltar asked. "Higher than our own pilots in similar scenarios." On Earth, the economic integration phase of the Zephyrian plan was encountering similar complications. The aliens had expected to deal with a unified planetary economy. Instead, they discovered that humans treated first contact like the universe's largest trade fair. Businessman Zhang had already cornered the market on authentic alien artifacts by manufacturing plastic replicas of Zephyrian technology and selling them to tourists. His factory was producing fake alien communicators faster than the real aliens could build actual ones. "You understand," Zhang explained to Ambassador Kethful during a trade negotiation. "This is just basic supply and demand. Humans want alien stuff. I supply alien-looking stuff. Everyone's happy, but these items are not functional," Kethful protested. "They're not supposed to be functional. They're supposed to be cool. Humans will buy anything that looks like it came from space." Meanwhile, Farmer Cho had started brewing what he called Galactic Friendship wine using a recipe that included Erd's grapes and what he claimed were alien-approved additives. The fact that the additives were actually just different types of Earth fruit didn't seem to matter to his customers. The Zephyrian Cultural Analysis Team was working overtime trying to understand human economic behavior. Their reports to Admiral Veltar grew increasingly confused. "Sir," reported Economic Specialist Rendell, "humans appear to operate under a completely irrational market system. They assign value to objects based on perceived coolness rather than actual utility." "Perceived coolness?" Veltar asked. "It's difficult to translate. Apparently, if something looks interesting or unusual, humans will trade significant resources for it, regardless of whether it serves any practical purpose." Back on the flagship, Engineer Yang had converted 3 human cargo haulers into what she called decoy warships, using holographic projectors and speakers that played recorded battle sounds. 2 Zephyrian sensors. The converted cargo ships looked like heavily armed destroyers. "If it looks scary and sounds scary," Yang explained to the bewildered alien tactical team, "it might as well be scary." Warfare is 50% logistics and 50% theater. The Zephyrian officers struggled to process this concept. Their military doctrine was based on precise calculations of firepower, armor thickness, and shield strength. The idea that psychological effects could be more important than actual weapons capabilities challenged everything they had learned. Admiral Veltar's carefully structured timeline was dissolving faster than sugar in rain. Phase 1 should have established clear diplomatic protocols. Phase 2 should have begun systematic economic integration. Instead, humans were treating the entire first context scenario like a neighborhood block party that had gotten slightly out of hand. "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "we're receiving reports that humans have begun organizing what they call a welcome festival for our fleet. They're inviting us to participate in something called a potluck dinner." Veltar felt what humans might have recognized as the beginning of a headache. His perfect plan was encountering variables that no simulation had predicted: human creativity, adaptability, and the cheerful assumption that any problem could be solved with enough enthusiasm and coffee. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most effective solutions came from people who didn't know they were supposed to be impossible. The arrival of the Krex Empire should have triggered Protocol 7 in the Zephyrian Command Manual. Admiral Veltar had drilled this scenario countless times. When a hostile third party entered controlled space, the response was systematic. Establish defensive perimeter. Initiate diplomatic contact. Prepare for coordinated military action if negotiations failed. Instead, Captain Kim sent a message to both alien fleets that made Veltar question everything he thought he knew about warfare. "Attention all ships," Kim broadcast on an open channel. "I'm hearing you folks might want to fight over our solar system. That's fine, but you're doing it over dinner first. Neutral space, asteroid belt coordinates following. Bring food." General Thokmar of the Krex Empire received this message while his fleet was preparing for battle. The Krex were a warrior species that conquered through overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision. They had never encountered an invitation to a meal in the middle of a military standoff. "What is a potluck?" General Thokmar asked his cultural advisor. "Unknown, sir. Our databases contain no reference to this human custom. Is it some form of combat ritual? We cannot determine this from available data." Meanwhile, Admiral Veltar was experiencing what humans might call a nervous breakdown. His 3-century plan had accounted for human resistance, human cooperation, and human confusion. It had not accounted for humans treating intergalactic warfare like a social gathering. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're detecting multiple human civilian vessels approaching the designated coordinates. They appear to be cargo ships." "Cargo ships? Are they carrying weapons?" "Negative, sir. We're reading food supplies, musical instruments, and large quantities of what appears to be recreational alcohol." Captain Kim had spent the past 6 hours coordinating what she privately called the most insane diplomatic mission in human history. The civilian response to her broadcast had been overwhelming. When word spread that Earth was hosting a 3-way first contact dinner party, volunteers had come from everywhere. Farmer Cho arrived with his entire stock of galactic friendship, wine, and a cargo hold full of Earth vegetables. Chef Min brought enough kimchi to feed 3 fleets. Engineer Hong had converted her transport ship into a mobile kitchen using spare parts in what she optimistically called adaptive cooking technology. Captain Park reported from the New Horizons bridge. "We have 47 civilian vessels en route to the meeting point. This is getting out of hand." "Park, this stopped being in hand the moment 200 alien ships showed up in our solar system," Kim replied. "Now we're just seeing how weird things can get." The asteroid belt became the strangest battleground in galactic history. Instead of warships facing off across empty space, 3 fleets found themselves anchored around a cluster of asteroids that human engineers had somehow converted into a makeshift space station. Docking tubes connected floating platforms where aliens and humans mingled in controlled chaos. General Thokmar found himself judging what humans called a costume contest. Participants had dressed up as various alien species using materials that ranged from clever to ridiculous. A human teenager wearing cardboard armor and aluminum foil was currently explaining Krex military doctrine to an actual Krex warrior, who was taking notes. "Your battle formations are very impressive," the teenager said seriously, "but have you considered adding more fire effects? Fire makes everything cooler." The Krex warrior, trained from birth in the art of warfare, found himself genuinely considering whether their invasion tactics might benefit from more dramatic visual elements. Ambassador Kethval was documenting human social rituals with growing bewilderment. He watched a group of humans teaching Zephyrian scientists a game called charades. The sight of his colleagues attempting to act out Earth animals while humans guessed wildly was not covered in any diplomatic manual. "Admiral," he reported to Veltar, "I believe the humans are conducting some form of psychological warfare through enforced social interaction." "Are we losing?" Veltar asked. "I honestly cannot tell, sir." The real breakthrough came when Engineer Yang implemented what she called competitive problem-solving exercises. she presented both alien fleets with a series of technical challenges that required creative solutions. Teams of mixed species worked together to solve puzzles that ranged from repairing damaged equipment to planning efficient cargo loading patterns. What the aliens didn't realize was that Yang was conducting elaborate, intelligence-gathering operations disguised as party games. By the end of the evening, she had detailed information about Zephyrian technology and Krek's military capabilities, obtained through collaborative brainstorming sessions. The crisis reached its peak when a real emergency occurred. A human cargo ship suffered a catastrophic system failure near a dangerous asteroid cluster. Rescue operations required immediate coordination between all three fleets. Without thinking, Zephyrian navigation specialists began calculating optimal approach vectors. Krek's engineers offered their heavy lifting equipment. Human pilots provided local knowledge of the asteroid field's navigation hazards. The rescue succeeded because three different species combined their strengths: Zephyrian planning, Krek's power, and human adaptability. When the crisis was over, everyone realized they had been working together seamlessly. General Thokomar looked around the improvised space station where Krek's warriors were sharing meals with Zephyrian scholars and human civilians. This was not how conquests were supposed to proceed. General, his aide reported, our tactical assessment is complete. What do you recommend? Sir, I recommend we stay for dessert. The humans have something called ice cream, and our cultural team believes it may be some form of advanced psychological warfare. We should investigate thoroughly. Admiral Veltar updated his mission reports with growing resignation. Phase 1 through 4 had been completely abandoned. His fleet was now participating in what humans called community-building exercises. With their supposed enemies, the galaxy was learning that sometimes the best way to prevent a war was to invite everyone to dinner and see what happened next. 6 months after the Great Potluck Incident, as historians would later call it, Admiral Veltar sat in his redesigned command center drinking his morning coffee. The beverage had become an essential part of his daily routine, along with what humans called flexible scheduling and collaborative decision-making. The holographic displays still showed the galaxy, but the color coding had changed. Green no longer meant conquered territory. Now it meant cooperative partnership zones. Yellow indicated cultural exchange regions. Red was reserved for areas that simply refused to try new approaches to problem solving. Admiral reported his new human advisor, Engineer Kim, were receiving a request for assistance from the Veltorian system. They're dealing with a solar flare crisis that's disrupting their communications grid. Veltar nodded. Assemble a joint response team. I want Zephyrian long-term planners, Krek's heavy equipment specialists, and human creative solutions consultants. This had become the standard operating procedure for the new Galactic Cooperation Initiative. When problems arose, the response teams combined systematic alien planning with human improvisation. The results were often bizarre, occasionally dangerous, but consistently effective. Engineer Hong was currently leading a crisis response mission in the Altair system, where a space station's life support had failed in a way that defied conventional repair methods. Her team included Zephyrian scientists who calculated optimal resource allocation, Krek's engineers who provided industrial-strength equipment, and humans who figured out how to fix critical systems using spare parts and creative thinking. Status report from Altair, announced Communications Officer Park. Engineer Hong has successfully restored life support using what she describes as aggressive improvisation with coffee-powered motivation. Captain Kim, now commanding the Joint Species Vessel Unity, kept her famous sign prominently displayed. On the bridge, plans are guidelines. Coffee is essential. Improvisation is inevitable. The Sol system had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The asteroid belt housed a permanent space station that served as headquarters. For the Galactic Innovation Zone, ships from dozens of species docked there regularly, bringing problems that required unconventional solutions. General Thokomar had established a Krek's cultural exchange program that officially existed for military intelligence purposes but had evolved into genuine diplomatic initiatives. His warriors were learning human sports, human cooking, and human approaches to conflict resolution. The sight of armored Krek soldiers playing basketball with human teenagers had become surprisingly common. General, his aide reported, the Earth Defense Force has requested our assistance with their new training program. What kind of assistance? Thokomar asked. They want our warriors to teach human soldiers proper combat discipline. In exchange, they're offering to teach our forces what they call tactical flexibility. Thokomar had learned that human military doctrine was simultaneously chaotic and effective. Human soldiers could follow orders when necessary, but they excelled at adapting when plans fell apart. This combination of structure and improvisation had proven valuable in joint operations. The Zephyrian Confederacy had undergone the most dramatic changes. Their rigid planning structure had evolved to incorporate what they now called adaptive methodology consulting. Teams of human advisors worked alongside Zephyrian strategists, adding unpredictable variables to long-term planning processes. The humans have introduced a concept they call productive chaos. Cultural analyst Jen Carr reported to Veltar, they deliberately introduced controlled randomness into planning processes to identify unexpected solutions. And this works. Velt asked. Success rates have improved by 37% when human consultants are included in strategic planning sessions. The most significant change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that diversity of thinking was more valuable than uniformity of approach. When the Rigel Confederation faced an economic crisis that traditional methods couldn't solve, a joint team of species applied multiple problem-solving styles simultaneously. Zephyrian economists calculated optimal resource distribution patterns. Krex industrial specialists implemented large-scale infrastructure improvements. Humans organized what they called crowdsourced innovation festivals, where citizens contributed creative solutions to specific problems. The crisis was resolved in 3 months instead of the predicted 3 years. Businessman Zhang had evolved his fake alien artifact business into a legitimate interspecies trade corporation. His factory has now produced actual functional technology developed through human-alien collaboration. The irony that his fake alien products had become real alien products was not lost on him. Business is about meeting demand, he explained to a delegation of visiting economists. Humans wanted alien technology. Aliens wanted human creativity. We just connected supply with demand in ways nobody expected. Farmer chose Galactic Friendship Wine, had become the unofficial diplomatic beverage of choice for interspecies negotiations. His recipe now included ingredients from 12 different worlds, and his farm hosted regular cultural exchange visits from alien agricultural specialists. The galaxy had discovered something remarkable. When species with different strengths worked together, they could solve problems that none of them could handle alone. Systematic planning combined with creative improvisation produced results that surprised everyone involved. Captain Kim updated her personal log as she watched the Unity's mixed-species crew working together on the bridge. Zephyrian navigators calculated precise course corrections while human pilots made intuitive adjustments for unexpected conditions. Krex engineers maintained ship systems with methodical precision while human technicians performed what they cheerfully called anticipatory maintenance. Personal log, day 187 of the new paradigm, she recorded. Turns out the best strategy for galactic cooperation is having good people, strong coffee, and the willingness to figure things out as you go along. The had updated their cultural databases with a new entry. Humans, unpredictable. Results, surprisingly effective. Recommendation, collaborate, caffeinate, improvise. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the best plans were the ones that left room for people to make them up as they went along.